They say money changes people, but I already knew who they were long before the check hit the table. At my grandfather's will reading, his lawyer handed me a $29 million check. My parents snatched it from my hands, tore it to shreds, and set it on fire, shouting, "This is what you get for cutting us off." But I didn't flinch, because what they burned wasn't real. What they never saw coming was who Grandpa left the real will with. And that morning I wore heels, not for fashion, for the sound they made on marble. I hadn't worn heels in years, not since the last time I tried to dress right for a family gathering and still ended up seated near the kitchen door. But that morning I chose them on purpose. Navy blue suede, 3 inches tall with a click sharp enough to slice silence. I wanted them to hear me coming, not because I had anything to prove, but because I was done pretending I didn't belong. The lobby of Burton and Reed smelled like lemon polish and tension, mahogany walls, brass door handles, a receptionist with too perfect posture. I gave her my name, Lydia Marks, and she gave me the smallest blink of recognition before gesturing me down the hall. Conference room 4B. The door was open. My mother didn't look up. She was adjusting her pearls as if their placement mattered more than my presence. My father sat stiffly, arms folded, like a man bracing for bad news. And Elle, of course, was already reclining like it was her rightful throne. Sunglasses perched on her head legs, crossed phone in hand, not even pretending to be present. I took the last seat. Mr. Clay Burton entered right on cue, his silver tie perfectly knotted. "We're here to fulfill the final wishes of Mr. Raymond Marks," he said, voice solemn. No one looked at me. Not really. And that was fine. Let them think I was still the background. Clay began reading the will. Ella sat up straighter when she heard her name. She was getting the beach house and Grandpa's prized '67 Mustang. She smiled like she'd earned it. "To Daniel and Carol Marks, Clay continued, a charitable donation will be made in your names, and the grandfather clock from the estate will remain in your possession." A pause. Tension crackled. Then to Lydia Marks, his eyes finally met mine. "Raymond leaves the entirety of his financial estate valued at $29.3 million. The room went still, like someone had pressed mute. Then the shouting started. "This is a joke," my father snapped, rising halfway from his seat. "She hasn't spoken to us in years." She walked out. My mother made a sound like she'd bitten into something sour. "She left this family, Clay. This can't be right." Clay Burton remained calm, hands folded. "The will was updated 3 months ago. It's legally notarized. Mr. Marks made his intentions very clear." Ella scoffed. "Grandpa was sentimental. She probably guilt-tripped him with one of her sad little emails." "I didn't send anything," I said evenly. That's when my father reached. His hand shot across the table and grabbed the envelope Mr. Burton had just slid toward me. The seal was still intact, Grandpa's old wax stamp, a horse head carved by hand. "Give that back," I said, my voice low. He ignored me, tore it open, and unfolded the check. His eyes scanned the figures, then narrowed. "This isn't real. This is counterfeit." "It's not, Clay," said calmly. "It's ceremonial. The actual transfer has already been processed through a private trust." My mother snatched the note that came with it. "For the one who stayed silent and stayed strong," she read, then sneered. "Stayed silent? You mean ungrateful." She began tearing the check once, twice, over and over until the pieces fluttered like confetti across the table. Ella leaned back, amused. "Oh, please. She's not the victim here. She always played the poor little outcast." "You never wanted to hear the truth," I said quietly. So I stopped talking. That's when my father pulled a lighter from his jacket pocket. No hesitation. Just flicked it once. The flame caught instantly. The ashes fell into the crystal dish at the center of the table, dark curls of smoke, rising like incense. Now he growled, "We're even." I didn't move. I didn't flinch. I just watched the fire consume the last thing they thought they could control. My mother folded her arms. "This is what happens when you betray your family," Ella added. "She didn't even visit Dad when he was in the hospital." "I wasn't told he was there," I said. But no one was listening. Let them believe they'd burned my inheritance. What they didn't know was that the real asset wasn't in that envelope. The check was a decoy. One Grandpa and I had prepared together. What mattered had already been moved, protected, secured. And the moment they lit that flame, They proved he was right to trust only me. It happened 6 weeks before the will reading on a rainy Thursday at a diner off Route 64. Grandpa had insisted on meeting in person. No lawyers, no family. Just the two of us and 2 mugs of black coffee that went cold untouched. He looked thinner than I remembered, like the years had finally caught up to him all at once. But his eyes still sharp, still seeing too much. They're going to destroy whatever they can't control, he said, without preamble. I blinked. Who? He didn't answer. Just reached into his coat pocket and slid a thick brown envelope across the table. It was sealed in wax. Same horse stamp. Same careful pressure. Don't open this unless they burn something, he said. I stared at him. What kind of something? He smiled, soft and tired. You'll know. I wanted to ask more, but he changed the subject to weather, to football, to memories I hadn't revisited in years. He paid the bill in cash and hugged me at the door. Not tight, but long. Like he was memorizing the moment. I didn't open the envelope that day. I didn't even touch it again until after the crystal ashtray filled with burnt paper. Back in my apartment, I sat on the floor with the envelope in my lap. The room was still just the hum of the fridge and the weight of what I already suspected. I broke the wax. Inside were 3 things. A folded document stamped private access. A flash drive in a black velvet pouch and a short note in Grandpa's handwriting, for when silence is no longer safety. Vault box 7 Langford Estate Holdings. Use your full name. Use the key I gave you at 18. You remember the one. I did. I'd thought it was just a keepsake. A sentimental brass key with no lock I could find. Now it glinted under my hallway lamp like a relic, or a weapon. I held it in my palm and whispered what Grandpa had said the day he gave it to me. You'll need this someday, when you're ready to claim yourself. Langford Estate Holdings wasn't listed on any public-facing directory. You had to know it existed to find it. A discreet office, no sign on the door, tucked between a defunct post office and a yoga studio downtown. The woman at reception didn't flinch when I said my name. Box 7, she asked. I nodded. She checked my ID, then examined the brass key with a curious glance. Right this way. Down a quiet hallway lined with oil paintings and locked doors, we stopped at a narrow room with paneled wood and a heavy drawer built into the wall. She left me alone with it. The key slid in cleanly. Clicked. I pulled the drawer open. Inside was a black fireproof envelope thick as a novel. Taped on top was a yellow sticky note. You're not crazy. And they're not clever, just predictable. R. I opened it slowly. First, a certified cashier's check made out to me for $29 million even. Second, a notarized copy of a private trust document transferring control of multiple financial assets into my name filed weeks before Grandpa died. Third, a separate manila folder labeled Identity. My chest tightened. Inside was a scanned copy of a death certificate. My name, my birth date. Cause of death, pedestrian collision. Verified by dental records. I stared at it for a full minute, not moving, not breathing. Someone had declared me legally dead. I pulled out my phone, opened my banking app. Error, account not found. Credit card declined. Driver's license number flagged as inactive. I wasn't just disinherited. I was being erased. Panic rose like a wave, but I forced myself to breathe. This was the plan. This was their move. And Grandpa had planned for it. I reached into the envelope again and found a flash drive matte black, marked only with a silver L. I slipped it into my laptop as soon as I got home. It contained one file, Watch Me First, MP4. I clicked. The video flickered. Then Grandpa's face appeared. He was seated in his den, wearing the cardigan I used to steal when I stayed over. If you're watching this, he said, they did it. They went too far. He leaned closer. But I didn't just leave you money. I left you proof. Grandpa's voice in the video was calm, but his eyes held weight. They'll tell you it's about fairness. They'll say you don't deserve it. But this was never about money. It was about control. And when they couldn't control you, they tried to erase you. He paused, reaching for something off-screen, a folder I now recognized, identical to the one I held. You were the only one who never asked for anything, Lydia. That's why you're the only one who deserves everything. The screen faded to black. I sat there stunned, not from shock, but from validation. For the first time in years, I felt real. Not tolerated. Not ignored. Real. The next morning, I called Naomi. She was my closest friend and a financial strategist who didn't blink when I said the words, identity fraud, will tampering, and targeted erasure. She came over that afternoon, laptop, already open, reading glasses on. I've seen messed up trust disputes, she said, scanning the documents. But this is surgical. They didn't want to steal from you. They wanted to undo you. Together, we cross-verified every record. My social security status was marked inactive. My birth certificate had been revised, my middle name removed. Online, I didn't exist. No school records, no tax returns. Even my voter registration was gone. They started this months ago, Naomi said. Maybe years. The last document in Grandpa's file was a land deed, one I hadn't expected. It listed me, Lydia Elise Marks, as the sole legal owner of a private property in Wren County. The address, the land under the original Marks timber estate. The very ground they'd built their empire on. Grandpa hadn't just left me assets. He'd left me the foundation they thought they stood on. That night, I locked every document in a fireproof case, backed up all files to an encrypted cloud, and stored the flash drive in my apartment's only hidden wall safe. Then I opened a drawer I hadn't touched in years. Inside were the college letters I never replied to. The first sketch of a company I once dreamed of starting. I wasn't the ghost they tried to make me. I was the fire they didn't see coming. I didn't tell Naomi, didn't mention it to anyone. Not about the feeling I had leaving Langford Vault. Not about the woman across the street, half in shadow, half in sunlight, watching me. At first it was just a figure. Middle-aged, beige jacket, oversized sunglasses. Still. Too still. But it wasn't her posture that stopped me. It was the scarf. Pale blue ivory trim initials stitched in the corner, MC, Marjorie Carroll. My mother. That scarf went missing 3 years ago. Mom said the washing machine chewed it up. I believed her. Now it hung around a stranger's neck like it belonged there. And she was staring straight at me. I looked away, pretended not to notice, walked into the cafe on the corner, didn't order anything, didn't slow down. Just passed through the dining area and pushed through the back exit. The alley was tight brick on both sides. I moved fast, circled the block, cut through a parking lot. When I finally looked back toward the vault, she was gone. I didn't call the police, didn't file a report. Instead, I went home and did the one thing I promised myself I wouldn't do. I panicked. I locked the door twice, then a third time, closed every curtain, checked every window, and slid to the floor, my back against the wall, breathing shallow. They're watching. They know I opened the box. Eventually, I stood, drank water with shaking hands. That's when I saw it. A plain white envelope slipped under the front door. No name, no return address. Inside was a single piece of paper. What they burned wasn't the real check. Don't speak. Just move wisely. Look in box array at the security firm. You'll understand everything. I read it 3 times, folded it, tucked it under a cookbook on the counter, like hiding it might make it real. Then I opened the drawer near the hallway. The brass key was still there, just where I'd left it. The one Grandpa gave me on my 18th birthday, wrapped in a linen cloth with a cryptic message I'd never fully understood. You'll need this someday, when you're ready to claim yourself. Now I understood. Langford Security didn't look like the kind of place that held secrets. It looked like a dentist's office. White walls, fake plants, silence. But when I gave my name and presented the key, the receptionist didn't blink. She just nodded and led me down another hallway, this one colder, lined with steel doors and reinforced glass. We stopped at box array top 12. She left me alone. The key fit. The latch clicked. Inside was a heavy black binder, a flash drive, and a single folded page with Grandpa's handwriting on top. If they ever bury you in paperwork, use this to dig your way out. R. I sat down at the small metal table and opened the binder. My birth certificate, the original one, not the one amended 2 years ago to swap in my stepfather's last name. My medical records, my college transcripts, voter registration, all intact with official timestamps predating the forged death record. They'd tried to erase me, but Grandpa had backed me up. Next was a will, a version I'd never seen before, notarized, witnessed. Dated 2 months after the version read aloud at the law office. It named me as the sole heir, not just to the financial estate, but to Mark's timber and Cooper voting rights. Intellectual property, the whole damn company. In his handwriting at the margin, Dan and Carol insisted Elle would know what to do with it. I disagree. I flipped to the final pages, an asset list and a set of corporate transfer forms already signed. Stamped, legal, final. Then the flash drive. I didn't plug it in there. Not yet. Just held it in my palms, small and heavy with meaning. He had known. All of it. That they'd not only try to steal my name, but my legacy. That they'd fake a death certificate if that's what it took to keep me quiet. But he hadn't trusted the system. He'd trusted me. I gathered the documents, tucked the drive into my coat pocket, and locked the box behind me. Back in the car, I sat in silence for a long time. Not scared, not angry, just steady. They buried a version of me, but they forgot. The truth doesn't rot underground. It grows roots. The courthouse smelled like old paper and polished stone, familiar in a way that made my chest ache. I'd walked these halls once as a teenager on a field trip, wondering if justice ever actually lived here. Today I wasn't wondering. I was coming to collect it. Sylvia Orton, my new attorney, met me at the metal detectors. No small talk. Just a crisp nod and a file clutched tightly in her hand. "Everything's prepped?" I asked. She didn't look up. "You brought the fire. I'm just here to help pour it." We entered hearing room 2A. My parents were already seated, my mother in pearls too perfect, too tight. My father in a suit that didn't quite fit anymore. Elle sat beside them, eyes narrowed, confidence brittle. Their lawyer looked fresh out of law school, overconfident, already smirking. Good. The judge, a solemn man named Kinley, entered and called the room to order. Formalities began. The opposing counsel stood first, smug. "Your Honor, the will dated February of last year clearly names my clients as the primary beneficiaries." Sylvia stood. "We submit into evidence a revised will dated 2 months later, notarized, signed. Independent witnesses present." She handed the file to the bailiff. The other lawyer laughed, actually laughed. It's not uncommon for estranged family members to produce creative documents. Sylvia tapped her tablet. The lights dimmed. A screen flickered to life. And there he was, Grandpa, frail but sharp-eyed, in his hospice room, speaking directly into the camera. If they're watching this in court, it means they did exactly what I feared. I changed my will by choice and with full clarity. I chose Lydia, because she's the only one who didn't treat me like a transaction. You could hear a pin drop. My mother gasped. Ella looked away. My father's jaw clenched, but he said nothing. Sylvia added quietly, "We also submit phone records. Messages from Elle warning Mr. Marks to stick to the script." Judge Kinley sat back silent for a beat. "Then I've seen greed. I've seen arrogance, but rarely both this loud." He turned to me. "Lydia Marks is hereby recognized as the sole legal heir." Then to my parents, "And you are under investigation for will tampering and identity fraud." I didn't smile, not yet. But the smoke was clearing, and I was still standing. The courthouse steps felt warmer than I remembered, not because of the spring sun, but because I was finally walking down them as myself. No more aliases, no more deleted records. Lydia Elise Marks, alive, legal, proven. A reporter stepped forward, mic in hand. "Ms. Marks, do you have a statement for your family?" I paused, then shook my head. They already made their statement when they lit a match. No need to say more. The real story was already spreading across financial blogs, local papers, even a feature on an expose podcast called Buried But Breathing. The phrase "fake death for inheritance" trended for 48 hours. But none of that mattered as much as the email that came through that night. Subject: reinstatement, complete body. Your social security number has been cleared and reactivated. Your voter registration is being restored. I stared at it for a long time. Then I logged into my banking app. Balance $29,000. No errors, no flags, no lockouts, just mine. And it didn't feel like a prize. It felt like oxygen. I didn't go home, not yet. I drove out to the edge of Wren County where Grandpa's estate still stood shuttered and silent. The land was mine now, all of it. But I didn't walk up the driveway. I just stood at the edge of the gravel path, staring at the silhouette of the house where I once believed family lived. My phone buzzed, a voicemail from Lydia I didn't know. About the death certificate, the files. I just signed where Dad told me. I didn't read it. Please don't shut me out. I never wanted this. I played it twice, then saved it. I wasn't angry. I wasn't moved. I was clear. They hadn't just stolen my name. They buried me because they were afraid of what I might become if I stayed standing. But I had, and now I wasn't just surviving. I was visible. I opened the fireproof safe for the last time that evening. Inside the real check, the notarized will, the original birth certificate, the flash drive, and a small linen cloth wrapped around a brass key I no longer needed to decode. Each item had weight not just physical, but emotional. They weren't trophies, they were survival. I laid them out gently across the table in my new apartment, far from the house I grew up in, far from the city that tried to erase me. Then I opened a drawer and pulled out the only thing that ever burned in front of me and didn't hurt. The ashes, the fake check, the one they ripped, set on fire, and destroyed like it meant something. I'd scooped them into a glass jar after the reading silent while the smoke cleared. Now I held that jar in both hands and walked it out onto my small balcony. The night was cool, quiet. I opened the lid and let the wind take the last of it. They thought they were destroying my worth, but what they burned was their illusion that control, silence, and power games could define legacy. They were wrong. I sat down, made tea, and opened my laptop. Not for the trust, not for press inquiries, not even for legal follow-ups, but for me. I reopened an old folder. Mark's redesigned something I'd started 10 years ago, and abandoned the day they told me I was too sensitive to run a company. This time, I didn't hesitate. And when I hit save, I did it under my full name. Later that week, I walked past a newsstand downtown. A small headline caught my eye: daughter restores identity, inherits empire after family fraud scandal. I didn't buy the paper, didn't need to. I already knew the truth. And the best part, I never had to shout it. Because sometimes the loudest thing a woman can do is smile while they burn the wrong thing.